One of the questions they had was from my uncle. He had brought his violin. They're saying, why are you bringing a violin on vacation? You trying to escape? I'm Bob Nemec. I'm 55, live in Whitby, work in a company that's in the Toronto area that I do computer programming for, lead a computer development team. Have two boys, 19 and 20, off at university. Been married for coming on 30 years. I was born in 1963 in Brno, in what was then Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic. At the time, the Czechoslovakian government was looking at liberalizing some of its policies as a communist government, and they went too far as the Soviet Union, the Russian government was concerned, and they physically invaded the country in order to effectively overthrow the government that was there at the time. What I remember of it as a child were some of the military events that occurred. They kind of stick with you, even though I was only, just turned 5 at the time. There's a couple that stand out in my mind. One was standing on a streetcar platform in the middle of the downtown area of Brno and watching a tank come by. And I would have been short, 5 years old height. And if you think about how the tracks of a tractor look, they're very large. So from my perspective, this large wheel was coming by. Now, I would have been maybe a foot or two away from this. I'm on the platform, it's coming by me. And as the track comes down, I remember it coming down and coming where the cobblestones are. And as it got on the cobblestones, it was crushing the cobblestones underneath its weight. I remember that, really noticing the crushing of the stones as the tank goes by and the weight of it goes over. My mom and I were on a streetcar, and we were sitting in one seat, got up, sat in another seat. There's like 4 or 5 people on it. And then it got strafed by machine gun fire. So the whole thing is like from a tank, so large caliber machine gun fire. I remember the whole thing was shifting, the glass was blowing out everywhere.
Tentokrát vyvolává zvuk sirena pražských zvonů mezi vojáky jistou nervozitu. Po 9. hodině se opět symbolicky.
In December of 1968, my grandfather gathered the family and escaped from Czechoslovakia. I remember this as a 5-year-old. So for me, it was another trip. I had traveled before. They were really careful not to tell the children. So that was my cousin and myself. My cousin would have been 2 years older, so she would have been 7. Not to tell them too much, so we wouldn't let it slip. We had split up in different groups, and one of the groups that was traveling was my uncle, my mom, and myself, 3 of us. And if you remember the classic railway car setup where there'd be 6 people in a railway car, like 3 on each side kind of facing each other, or 4, something like that. I think there was 6. And we're in the train, and we got stopped at the border, normal thing. And the customs people were coming through. So what I didn't know at the time was that the doll that I was holding, which was about yay big, was stuffed full of money. And they hadn't told me this, obviously. And that's what I was holding as we were in this railway car being quizzed by the security or by the border patrol. One of the questions they had was from my uncle. He had brought his violin. They're saying, why are you bringing a violin on vacation? You trying to escape? And my mom perked up and concocted the story of saying, no, we're going to go visit his sick aunt in Vienna. She asked if he could bring the violin to play for her. He's going to come back earlier and bring my son, that she's going to stay back because she was a nurse to help take care of her. And that was the whole story. Evidently it was good enough to let us go. As that was happening, my grandfather at the time had gone through a challenging time in his life. Like he had been sent to Siberia for a couple of years by the Soviet Union, fought in the war and so on. So he had a very strong motivation to get his family out of there, looking at this as a bad turn of events historically. He gathered up pretty much everybody. There was 10 people in total, so it's my grandfather, my grandmother, their 6 kids, 2 grandkids, and a son-in-law, and effectively escaped the country. At our wedding, I had a chance to stand up and kind of thank everybody and say, well, nice way, isn't this great? Thank the in-laws and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't plan this, but I just spontaneously at the beginning decided to do the first part of my thanks in Ukrainian we were in a basement of a Ukrainian church, it was a Ukrainian community, yada yada, so I think, okay, I'll start this way. And again, I hadn't planned this, but as I was saying it, I looked at my grandfather and I said, thank you for bringing us to Canada, because look at the life I have now. Look at the life I got, look at the life I got, look at the wedding I got, look at my circumstances. Thank you.